Alright, people, review of the week time. So, a lot to dive into, a lot to talk about, a lot of news breaking over the last few days, but we got to start as we always do on these. Whenever there's a fight night, we always talk about that first. We will talk about the boxer show that was on last night in Liverpool, but we also need to talk about boxer as a whole, and I wonder will this take the bulk of the video? Hopefully not, but there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot wrong with boxer. There's an awful lot wrong. I'm not talking about necessarily just this card as an isolated incident. It's becoming frequent, very frequent now with boxer. In terms of the card, there was no real memorable fights. You know, Meyer Jonas was alright, competitive, close fight. I didn't really have an issue. Could have went either way. I guess from Michaela Meyer, in some ways you could feel for it, because I actually did feel she did enough to beat Baumgardner when they fought, even though I was actually favouring Baumgardner to win. I felt that she just nicked the Baumgardner fight, so she was a bit unlucky there. Comes back to the UK, and the thing is, that was two Americans fighting in the UK. This is a Brit and an American, and again she gets the short end of the decision, but it was an alright fight. That was probably the only decent fight on the card, because some of these fights, I'll give you an example, right? Zach Chelly, Joe Cullen, or Jack Cullen, Joe Cullen. He's a darts player, Jack Cullen. This fight right here happened nearly 4 years ago. 3.5 on Fight Camp. That was on the undercard of Dylan White, Povetkin won, right? And it was an alright fight. It was a horrible decision. Zach Chelly won the fight, but it was a draw. So I was thinking, okay, that was in Eddie Hearn's backyard with hardly anybody there. Just Sky. Hearn was watching from the balcony. You know, it was behind closed doors time. There was no one really there. And I think with fans in attendance, this could really catch fire. This could be a good little scrap. And it just wasn't. It was just a fairly dull fight, as was Mark Jeffers and Jermaine Brown, as was Karis Artenstall's fight. I seen the 1-2 that Jack Massey landed on his opponent. It was a nice little he turned into, he had him on, Queer Street with those legs. He really did. But the card in of itself was just fairly lackluster. It was void of anything. And it just seems to me to be consistent with this now. We've a card coming up now in a fortnight's time, which is obviously the Dan Aziz Joshua Buatsi fight, which, don't get me wrong, it's a good main event. Adam Azim on the undercard. You've got that Vidal Riley guy who's getting better, Ben Whittaker and Caroline Dubois. But I'm looking, do you know what, right? I'm looking at this here and I'm thinking, how is that OVO going to look? Bear in mind, they moved this from the O2 to the OVO. The OVO is a smaller arena. It's about a 12,000 capacity. Believe me, I've been in the OVO. It looks bigger on TV than it is in real life. It does look bigger on TV than real life. It's not actually that big on the inside. But still, I look at that card and I think that's going to probably be a bad look on TV when you see how empty that's going to look. It could prove me wrong. But I think that's going to be an empty look, because the card is just so dead. It's a good main event, don't get me wrong, but the rest of it, I just don't really, I don't know. I just don't really care for that. And like I said in a previous video, Ben Shalom and Sky, it's been a disaster. I don't think anyone can say it's been anything other than a disaster. And the funny thing is, when he started with Sky in October 2021, that's when he had his first show with Sky, he was new. No one, I never heard the name Ben. I didn't know. I remember Frank Warren was the first guy to mention his name in I think it was an IFL or Boxing Social interview, and I was like, who the hell is Ben Shalom? Never heard of this guy. And I thought, okay, he's signing some guys. The cards aren't going to be great, to be expected, but give him a bit of time. And to be honest with you, the first couple of months, there was some good signs there. He's putting on fights well past their sell-by date, Cam Brook, but nevertheless he was doing it. He's putting Chris Eubank Jr. I know he's a Sauerland fighter, but they were working together. He wasn't doing too bad. He was making some signings, and I was thinking, okay, things are looking like they could be on the upward trajectory. He handled the Catell Taylor situation very well. You want to give him criticism, go for it, but in that situation, he handled it very well, very professional. I was very impressed with him. And it seems like after that, it just went downhill, because he's been putting on a lot worse shows. Fighters have been leaving. The cards have just been, it's been a mess. That's the only way I can describe Boxer over the last year. It's been a mess, a complete and utter mess. And I don't know, is that primarily Ben Shalom? Do Sky have to shoulder some of the blame? Does not having Adam Smith making the decisions anymore not help things? You know, I've used this analogy before about Boxer. But imagine Adam Smith. Imagine you're talking about a script writer being Ben Shalom, and Adam Smith is a theatre director. He's a producer, and he's saying just come up with ideas, and whatever ones stick, we'll put them in the play, we'll put them in the TV show. And you've Ben Shalom with these absurd ideas, none of them make sense, but they're going through someone like an Adam Smith, and he's like, doesn't work. But if I take this, put it with this, and put it like this, all right, we have something. You then take him away, and you give that guy free reign to make up all these ideas, and just it'll all go unchecked. That's kind of like what's happened, because you're looking at Sky and Boxer, and you're like, what is actually going on here? The shows are awful. The production from every point, from start to finish, just seems off. There's no life anymore, even in, you know, the Johnny Nelson types and any like that. Not that there ever really was much, but everything just seems so void of anything, void of any life, void of any fun, void of any colour. It genuinely seems that way. That like it's just black and white now with Sky. It's like someone's just taken the colour, just got it all out. It's black and white across the board. It's like everyone is just miserable, like they've just come from a funeral at Sky. And that's trickling into the main show in terms of the fighting, because it's honestly awful. That's the only way I can describe it. It's honestly absolutely awful what's happening on Sky. Just seeing how the product has been. And listen, Ben Shalom has another year on his contract. Let's see what happens in a year's time. Because where is he going to go after this if he doesn't stay with Sky? Because I can't see many people wanting to work with him. As I said in that video, I don't want to labour the point here, but as I said in that video, when you have fighters who've been with an Eddie Hearn or been with a Frank Warren, and they've gone over to Ben Shalom, they've almost immediately, or maybe had one fight and immediately left. And they've obviously looked and thought, oh wow, you know, I thought Hearn was bad, or I thought Warren was bad. This isn't even funny. And they're leaving. The people who are staying with him, well, they've not been with any promoters prior to that. So they've not really known any different. If you think about it like that, they really haven't. You know, Tyler Denny and people like that, as far as they're concerned, he's the only promoter I've ever had. Major promoter anyway. So, yeah, he's doing a fine job. And this really just shows kind of where we're at with Boxer. When Kell Brook was asked by TalkSport if he considered coming out of retirement to fight Eubank Jr., he said, yeah, he's the one getting talked about the most. I don't like the guy. It's a fight that I can get out of bed for, get out of them silk sheets. I'm training, can make it happen. I mean, like, really, is that really where we're at now? That we're having to get Kell Brook, who retired 2 years ago, to fight Chris Eubank Jr. Is that really where we're at now with Sky? Unreal. And I wouldn't like to see that fight, because I think Chris Eubank Jr. would win, because Kell Brook has been out of the ring 2 years. You know, he looked good against Amir Khan, but like, you know, you're talking about a guy who in the last 3 years has had 2 fights, a loss and a win. A bad loss to Terence Crawford in 3 rounds, and then a win over Amir Khan, who himself had only had 1 fight in the last, I think, 2 years? Prior 3 years? Thereabouts. So that doesn't really tell us much, and that's what we're looking at with Sky. Not good enough. Just not good enough. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with boxing. It really is. I don't think British boxing is necessary. British boxing is not in the same place it was in 2017, 2018, when it was really at the forefront. It was doing brilliant. It's not there, but it's not on its knees. I certainly don't think. I do worry a little bit when the likes of Joshua and Fury step away. You know, I do worry a little bit, because there's no one really of their caliber to step in yet that we've seen. But you never know. There's still time, and sometimes these people just come out of nowhere. They come out of the blue, and you're just like, oh, there's a start just been made. So it does happen. So let's wait and see. But right now it's let's see. Speaking of dusts up, Josh Taylor, Jack Catell, this rematch is now reportedly agreed and set to take place next. That was what was originally reported. Now, Josh Taylor has said that no, he's not accepted an offer. He said he thinks he needs to stick to his crayons and colouring books. He doesn't know what's happening. So, here are two things. One are saying it's signed, another saying it's not. Right? Now, if it happens, it happens. Happy days. Right? Happy days. If it doesn't, then Josh Taylor, I don't think is going to be losing sleep. He'll do whatever he needs to do at welterweight. He's probably going to go up there next. But Jack Catell, in my opinion, and not just in my opinion, if you see the IFL interviews, in the opinion of the majority, he needs to move on. Because this is beyond silly now at this point. Jack Catell is not the most entertaining in the ring. He's not a colourful character. He's not a larger-than-life, charismatic individual outside the ring. And that's all right. But you need to find something to your game other than I got robbed in Glasgow 2 years ago. I'm sure last night was Saturday night. I'm sure there were loads who got robbed in Glasgow on Saturday night. They're not going to be talking about it 2 years later. What I mean by that is that can't be your whole selling point. I mean, the fact of the matter is you've got Eddie Hearn and Sam Jones, two of the best talkers in boxing, and all they can really do is labour the point. We got robbed against Josh Taylor 2 years ago. I seen it. I watched it. I did a watch along for that fight. I seen it. Yes, Jack Catell was really hard done. He should have won the fight. It's done. It's gone. It's 2 years. Move on. You can't keep labouring the point. At the end of the day, all you're really doing, Josh Taylor, Jack Catell doesn't like Josh Taylor, and I can understand why. Right? All you're doing is just feeding him. It's literally what you're doing. It would be better off for you on so many levels to just not mention him. You're just feeding him. Every single time you start mentioning him and saying this, you're just feeding him. That's all you're doing. You're giving him reason to go and have a dig at you and this, that. And you're giving, at the end of the day, the fans are having digs as well. They're just like, move on. And that's what I'd be saying. Move on. Move on. The world's moved on. We've all moved on, Jack Catell. You need to too. If that is the only selling point you have with promoter like Eddie Hearn, a manager like Sam Jones, who could sell a car on fire to someone, if that's all they can do, look, you got to do something. At the end of the day, look at the scene at 140. Try and see what you can do against one of the champions. Look at a Subriel Matias. Look at a Devin Haney. Look at a Teofimo Lopez. I would say Rowley because I would make Jack Catell a heavy favourite over Rowley. But God knows what's happening with him. I think Ryan Garcia, the whole Ryan Garcia Rowley thing is a bit, I don't know. Because it's reported now, moving swiftly on, that Garcia is in negotiations to fight Isaac Cruz next. He says, sign the contract and let's see who's the truth. Alright, look. With Ryan, I don't hate the Pitbull fight, but why mention Devin? Why mention Devin and then act like you're the A side in it? Or, you say like, oh, Devin only did so many thousand pay-per-views. He's a world champion. And he's unbeaten. I thought, is your not goal to be world champion or what? I reckon he looked at Devin and thought, alright, that style is that's not gonna suit me. I'm not gonna look good against that style. No chance. I'd rather have an easy fight against a Rowley or someone like a Pitbull, who is a tough fight in of itself, but he's not looking at Ryan Garcia or he's not looking at Devin Haney or anyone like that. And listen, Ryan Garcia, why are you going to mention people if you're not going to fight them? Why are you going to say, oh, Devin, I'm this, that, the other? You're not going to fight him. As far as I'm concerned, that's a duck. If there was negotiations there and you were like, no, I'm going another direction, and your rationale is, well, you didn't do that many pay-per-view buys. What? He's talented, Ryan Garcia. He's very talented. He's got a lot of potential. He's got a lot of star power. But it's over the years, I've looked at Garcia and just scratched my head thinking, like, what are you actually doing? Like, what are you actually doing? Now, Leonard Ellerbe, do you remember him? He is shooting down rumours, and I'm sad these are only rumours because I would have loved this fight to happen, that Tank Davis was going to fight Subriel Matias on March the 30th. That would have been PBC's first show with Amazon. I'm so upset that actually fight isn't happening because that would have been absolutely flipping amazing. Can you imagine Mateus versus Haney? Tank Davis? That would have been, oh man. I just want to see Subriel Mateus in a big fight. I think he is tremendous. And he's earned that big fight now. I mean, this guy is fighting dangerous opponent after dangerous opponent. He's fighting these mandatories who you're just like, oh, who really wants to... And he has to fight them. And he's fighting them, he's making them quit. What was it, like 4 of his last 5 opponents, all unbeaten records? Man, I hope Subriel Mateus lands a big fight. But in terms of PBC, what's happening there... PBC and Al Heyman's first show on Amazon Prime is reportedly being planned for the 30th of March. Will likely be a pay-per-view. Wow, Jesus. So they're going straight in, pay-per-view, straight off the bat. Now, that has a lot of people asking the questions, who's going to be on it? And obviously I talked in a video on Friday where I was listening to an interview with Deontay Wilder that was recently uploaded, and he was talking about coming back in March. Now, I was, at the time, they didn't announce that. So I was thinking, okay, if he's back in March, well, then the only logical place he would fight on, I would imagine, is on Joshua Ngannou, which is obviously going to happen in Saudi Arabia on March the 8th, Friday. And then this breaks, and I'm thinking, they wouldn't seriously put Deontay Wilder in a pay-per-view, first fight back against God knows who. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't be that brazen. But if it's a Tank Davis against whoever, just saying, Tank Davis... Wilder on the undercard? Yeah, maybe. Maybe they could do that. I mean, he is still with BBC, or certainly associated with them as far as I'm aware. So yeah, maybe we'll see Deontay Wilder out on that. Be interested to see, well, for one, who they put on this card on March 30, because they're going to want to pull out all stops, the first show with the Amazon Prime. But also, what Deontay Wilder does next. If he does fight in March, will it be on the Joshua undercard? That's going to be an interesting one. Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn have now signed a contract for a 5 versus 5 Queensberry Matchroom show, Saudi Arabia. The fighters taking part for both teams will be announced during the fight week for Joshua versus Ngannou. I'm looking forward to that. I really genuinely am looking forward. That's going to be interesting. That's going to be real interesting, because you can look at that and just think in so many ways, how could that go? Who are they going to do? That's really, really interesting. I'd love to see Smith versus Yard. I'd like to see that fight. I think that'd be a really, really good fight. Callum Smith, Anthony Yard. I'd really like to see that fight. Would they go for kind of names over prospects or something? I don't know. I'd love to see a Telma versus Fisher. I'd quite like to see that fight. I'd be going with a Telma in that fight. Definitely. That'd be a good fight, actually, a Telma versus Fisher. So I'd do that. See, I'm looking at it from the kind of domestic prospect kind of level thing. I'm not really thinking about some of Hearn's American fighters now, but like, do you know what I would do? Just because, why not? I would do Jay Opetaia's 2 leftovers. I would do Elizara versus Jordan Thompson. I'm not going to turn around and say the winner gets a crack at Jay Opetaia. That would just be fair. That wouldn't even be funny to say that. But it would be interesting to see who could do better between the two. Because obviously Jordan Thompson, neither did good, but Jordan Thompson lasted longer. He lasted a lot longer, but neither did good. It's not like you could say he did better. Neither did good. So I do them. I would love to try Sam Noakes, Gary Cully. I'd love that fight. I think that'd be they're 2 big punchers at lightweight. Why not? Why not give it a go? I don't trust Cully's chin against Sam Noakes. I don't trust it. I don't trust Gary Cully's chin against Sam Noakes. I don't think it'd hold up. That guy he fought in his last fight, he definitely, no. I wouldn't trust Gary. He didn't hit that hard. I can't remember his name. He fought Lee Wood. He's not a noted puncher, but he had Gary Cully thinking at times. So I might even favour Sam Noakes. I know Gary Cully's fought at a much higher level, but I might even go with Sam Noakes. And then, who would I do for the last fight? Don't want this to labour on too long, but I'm trying to think through the roster off the top of my head. And just think, like, what makes sense? What's competitive? Look, I'd love to see Daniel Dubois, Fabio Wadley, if Wadley was still a matchroom fighter. I would do that. Kill it off with a heavyweight. I would do that fight. But I don't know what the situation is with Fabio Wadley? Is he with Queensberry? Is he with Matchroom? I know Hergovic isn't with Matchroom, so he's out of the equation. Yeah, but I'd love to do a big heavyweight fight. I would, but like, who do you have? Also, speaking of heavyweights, Joyce announced his comeback, and I was thinking of doing a video on this because I've already done a video on Joyce and my thoughts on his opponent and him coming back against Cash Ali. But what I mean by giving my thoughts on it is that Joyce, in many ways, he's really been absolutely kicked to the curb, kicked and stamped on everything by Frank Warren, if you think about it. Because Joyce, when he turned pro with David Haye and Haymaker Ring Stars when they were putting those shows on Dave. And at the time, I was thinking, okay, it's not one of the major two. Obviously, Shalom wasn't a thing back then, so you really only had Warren and Hearn. And I was like, Hayes only starting now, but he is putting his own shows on, and it's on terrestrial TV, even if it is Dave. People are going to be able to see it, so okay, let's see how it goes. It became apparent that David Haye and Ringstar, that was never going to go anywhere, and he left. He had fought on Matchroom shows, like when he fought Len Roy Thomas. Can't remember what card that was on. I think that was on the undercard. David Haye, Bellew 2. He fought Len Roy Thomas on that, and I thought he might sign with Matchroom. He didn't. He went with Frank Warren and Queensberry. And no sooner did he sign with Warren and Queensberry, you could tell that it was Joyce Dubois. That was the trajectory that Warren had. But if you'd seen how BT Sport, as it was at the time, behaved around Joyce, you'd swear he was a Matchroom fighter coming over, because they were not complimentary of him. Everything he did, Dubois does it better. Seriously, go back and watch some of the shows. They literally made it out as though Joyce was an afterthought. Bear in mind, he's one of their fighters. And people say, like, sometimes announcers can be a bit, or commentators, they can be a bit too biased towards the house fighter. The opposite with Joyce, they were actually antagonistic towards him at times. And you're like, hang on a minute. Alright, this is in-house. Don't make it so obvious who you want to win. And when he did finally beat Daniel Dubois, Frank Warren had a look on his face like, oh, my guy just lost. And we're like, well, yeah, one of your fighters lost, but you promote both of them, so it's not really an L. But we knew the horse he had in the race. Frank Warren he's not even shy about hiding it. He just shows, like, I wanted Dubois to win, and he didn't. And what does he go and do? He gets Dubois a crack at an interim title to then get him a crack at a regular title. And Joyce fights Parker on pay-per-view. Fair enough. Decent fight. And then sticks him in there with Zhilei Zhang twice. And he gets stopped both times. Now he's fighting Cash Ali while Dubois is going off making money in Saudi, fighting the likes and beating the likes of Jarrell Miller. So in the end, Warren got his wish. Joyce fell by the wayside. And Daniel Dubois went on to bigger and better things. But I'm amazed Joyce stuck around with Warren. I thought after he beat Dubois, because I think he actually re-signed, if I'm not mistaken, with Warren after he beat Dubois. And for me, if there's one mistake, you could say the mistake would be going in there with Zhilei Zhang. But maybe the mistake was re-signing with Warren and not going elsewhere. I know Boxer wasn't a thing, but maybe going to Hearn or someone like that after, because Warren has done Joyce not well. I think it's the best way to say it. He hasn't done him very well. He hasn't. What else do we have? Oh yeah, I'm seeing this here. So Tyson Fury with a training picture of his camp ahead of his fight with Alexander Usyk. This week I'm going to do a couple of videos on that fight. Just give it kind of like keys to victory and stuff like that, because I'm excited. Now I see young Moses Atelma there. I see him there, but I don't see any Jay Opetaia. And I do wonder, is Jay Opetaia in camp with Fury? Because if he is, as I've said several times, great sparring partner, absolutely quality. But if he's not, as good as I think Atelma is, and I think Atelma is very good, he's not the same as a Jay Opetaia. Jay Opetaia will help him way more than a Moses Atelma. So that's interesting if he's not there. Let's have a look-see on boxing scene before we finish up. Hearn, I know I'm a fanboy, but I believe Joshua is going to beat Ngannou, Fury and become undisputed. Where's Usyk? That's the thing. And I think I said this in the Element group. It's happening again. It's happening again. Going into that day of reckoning card. Joshua Wilder. To Joshua's credit, he only mentioned Wilder, I think, once, but it was everyone else. Joshua Wilder. I was like, hang on a minute. Parker is there. Don't underestimate him. Yes, I fancied Wilder in that fight, but I always said it. If one of those guys was to get upset, I would imagine it would have been Deontay Wilder. What happened? Upset. It's not an upset for Tyson Fury, in my opinion, or Alexander Usyk to beat Tyson Fury, but I don't like it when this stuff happens. When you have one person saying, beat Ngannou and then beat Fury. It's like, he has to get through Alexander Usyk, Eddie. There's no foregone conclusion that he does, right? And will you be saying Usyk 3, Joshua 3? I have no appetite for that fight. A lot of other people don't have an appetite for that fight. Maybe the Saudis do, I don't know. But a lot of people don't really have an appetite for that fight. And personally, I know Ben Davison will say it, and some of Joshua's fans will say it. Oh, Joshua's this now. No, that's a style problem with Alexander Usyk. You're always going to have issues. It doesn't matter really what you do. You're always going to have a style problem with that specific style, Alexander Usyk. And he knows Joshua now quite well. I wouldn't be fancying Joshua, even if they fight this year, to beat Alexander Usyk. I think that it would go similar trajectory to the first two. Maybe Alexander Usyk would be even more aggressive, actually, if they fought, because he's like, hang on a minute, last time we fought, they tried to rob me. Which one of the judges did. I can't remember which one it was, but one of them scored that fight for Joshua when he clearly didn't win. So, yeah, I don't like that. I just focus on what's going to happen and then say, instead of saying beats Ngannou, beats the winner of Fury Usyk, whoever that may be. What else do we have? Bivol says he made Canelo respect 175. I beat him once. I'm good. Canelo subject now closed. It's sad that he's not been able to push on from that. Let's see what else we have here. Do we have much else? Not really. Mauricio Lara back on February 16 show, DAZN in Mexico. Alright, cool. We like Mauricio Lara. We do. He's a fun, entertaining fighter. There's not a great deal more else to really go on about now on BoxRec. Our boxing scene. I would imagine we are going to be talking a lot this week about kind of maybe some of the rumour mills that are coming up, some of the upcoming news and fights. Obviously, they have that card in Belfast on Saturday with DAZN, and they also have a great fight, in my opinion, John Ryder versus Jaime Munguia. We got to talk about it. Looking forward to that fight, definitely. And yeah, we've got a good little run. In fact, actually, we've got a great little run the next few weeks. So we have that, and then we have the Ben fight, and we have the Dan Aziz Joshua Buatsi fight the following week. We have the Liam Williams Hamza Shearer's fight on the 10th. Fury Usyk on the 17th. Oh yes, we do. And then in 3 weeks' time, we have it's coming thick and fast, lads. No complaints by me, by the way. I want to hit 20k quick, and believe me, we are going to hit it quick. I will leave it there. Lads, I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. For now, I will leave you with that. Lads, I hope you all have a great week. Hopefully the phone rings with some good news, myself included. I hope that happens to myself as well. Yeah, nothing but good things. Lads, fingers crossed. I hope you all have a great time. Smash the like button on the way in or on the way out. Hit like, subscribe, notifications, all that good stuff. Share the video as well. Help get your boy's name known. But for now, I will leave you with that. Lads, have a great week. Peace.